So let me get this straight. You've got Ridley Scott directing a gangster movie with Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe in the leads. I'm sold. So, American Gangster follows the true story of Frank Lucas, played by Denzel Washington, a criminal who rises to power in Harlem, New York City, in which Frank Lucas smuggled and sold heroin in the United States for American service warplanes during the Vietnam War. The story simultaneously focuses on Ritchie Roberts, played by Russell Crowe. He leads a private task force to try and take down Frank Lucas's drug empire. So, this is a spoiler warning, so anyone that hasn't seen American Gangster, save this video, watch the movie, and then yeah, once you've seen the movie, come back to my review. Right from the word go, the story wastes no time in establishing the major themes of the movie, this being the themes of greed and power in Frank Lucas's character, and the motifs of honesty and justice in Ritchie Roberts' character. It meant for me anyway, that the movie's overall themes were not modelled and were very clear from the outset. Now, much like another favourite crime movie of mine, Heat, the story is great at delaying the moment when Ritchie Roberts and Frank Lucas meet for the first time. This creative story choice allows us to empathise and follow their respective character arcs, so that when Frank and Ritchie meet at the end of the movie, the payoff is that much more satisfying. Now, Denzel Washington surprisingly brings a quiet and reserved presence in his portrayal of Frank Lucas. He thankfully avoids the stereotypical loudmouth, larger-than-life portrayal of a gangster, such as Tony Montana and Scarface, as Frank's persona is much more akin to Michael Corleone in The Godfather. Now, despite some of the atrocious things that Frank Lucas does in this story, Denzel Washington brings a sense of charm and charisma to the role. As an audience member, it just meant I was lured into the wealth and power aspects of Frank's lifestyle. Now, Russell Crowe's performance as Ritchie Roberts, it very much reminded me of Al Pacino's performance in Serpico. Like Al Pacino in Serpico, Russell Crowe is great at conveying the honest and sincere qualities in his character, whilst very much being a flawed human being. This is apparent in Ritchie Roberts' obsession to take down Frank Lucas that consumes both his work life and everyday life as well. Russell Crowe is also brilliant at showing the pain and suffering in his character. This is particularly evident whenever Ritchie struggles to find a breakthrough in the investigation. All of this means that when Ritchie does catch Frank Lucas by the movie's conclusion, it's that much more rewarding for the audience. So, one of the best decisions that Ridley Scott did in this movie was to give equal attention to Frank Lucas and Ritchie Roberts. It means the movie never really picks a side of one storyline over the other. As a result, I was able to care and empathise with both characters. I also liked how Ridley Scott savours the small conversations between key characters in the story. The scenes I enjoyed most with Frank Lucas is whenever he's spending time with his family, and in Ritchie's case it's the investigative scenes with his police colleagues that definitely struck a chord with me. Ironically, it's these conversational scenes that stay with me long after the credits roll. It meant that I was able to understand the mindset of these characters and the motivations within the story. The use of tension from Ridley Scott is fantastic for how he infers an act of violence without it actually leading to one. There's a scene where Frank Lucas pulls his brother Huey to one side at a nightclub after he spots him talking to Gangster Nicky Barnes. There's a pause from Frank Lucas as Huey is about to tell him about the conversation he had with Nicky Barnes as Denzel Washington cracks an evil smile. It's these small character moments that Ridley Scott perfectly captures on screen, and it shows us that inferring an act of violence can be just as terrifying as actually seeing one. The only aspect of the movie that I didn't really like is how it takes a little while to get into the meat of the story. One example of this is when we see Frank Lucas go to Thailand to try and negotiate a deal to export heroin to the US. This segment lingers on a little longer than it should, and it feels a bit redundant to say the least. The other redundant segment is when we see Ritchie Roberts and his cop colleagues take out a car park before they discover almost $1 million in unmarked cash. This portion of the story definitely could have done with a trim in the editing department, as these scenes practically hammer home the point of Ritchie being an honest, incorruptible cop. So just to give a summary of my thoughts, with an efficient story and screenplay from Steven Alien that wastes no time in establishing the central themes of the movie, reliable and strong performances from Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe, brilliant direction from Ridley Scott, who savours the small conversations between characters, as opposed to throwing a spew of violent scenes on screen, although there's quite a few scenes of this nature to say the least. And finally, the top decision from Ridley Scott to not compromise the two central characters of the movie by giving them equal focus. So overall, I'm going to give American Gangster a 9 out of 10. So I'll now hand it over to you guys. I'm interested to hear your thoughts in terms of whether or not you enjoyed American Gangster, and where do you think this movie ranks in terms of the gangster genre, so interested to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and be sure to hit the notification bell for updates on the latest videos. I'm also available on social media, so if you want to follow me on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, I'll post links to all of those in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this movie review, and as always, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.